Was Echo worth the wait? What are our thoughts on how Dragon Ball Daima will go? Should we be hyped that solo leveling finally got an anime? We'll be discussing that today and more on our special episode of What's New. We're Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks, and I'm your host, Christian Ashley, with a very special guest, Matthew Winter. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. It's kind of one of the things we wanted to have you on for a while now. Finally got the chance to do it. We're going to get things done today. So, for people who don't know who you are, I know a little bit from other things, but I've been one of the people learning a lot today. Like, who are you? What are you into? Like, podcasting, other stuff. Like,
Yeah. I've been floating around this circle of people for 2 or 3 years now. Friends of friends, those sorts of things. Um, I was on Whole Church a little bit ago, the last year sometime. I don't remember exactly when. Um, I've done the Brother Matthew podcast, Commuter Christian, the Reconstructed Faith. All that's on indefinite hiatus right now because I'm actually doing some in-person ministry work at my church, which really the online thing for me was always kind of a fill in until I could get my boots on the ground and teach a class or whatever in person. And so that's where I'm at right now. You can find all that on YouTube, on the Brother Matthew channel, or the website while it's still up. I haven't decided if I'm going to renew, any of that stuff yet or not, since I'm on hiatus.
yeah,
And it's a lot of money to keep a website and a domain and all that going if you're not using it.
it costs a pretty penny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So before we get into the What's New episode proper, like, since this introduction to a lot of people, like, do you have any top fandoms you're like really into, you want to really talk about real quick?
Oh gosh. I think so. I go through cycles of hyperfixation. Um, like right now, today's topic will be evidence of that. I'm just back into being super into Dragon Ball. So I think a lot of millennials, a lot of people my age, grew up that was our window into anime. Um, and lost track for a while through a lot of my adulthood. Didn't really catch the super thing when it was on and when it was relevant. So I'm just coming back around to all that stuff now. Was a Star Trek's another big one.
Excellent.
I'm struggling through some of the newer shows. Um, it's
Excellent way to put stop with that. Yes.
It's format wise for me.
Mhm.
There's something to episodic television that newer streaming shows just don't have.
Yes. And
There's
honestly,
an art to being able to tell a singular story in a 42-minute episode,
mhm.
and that's where my struggle is. You can get
Yeah.
into politics or social or whatever. I'm not even looking at it from that angle, just more of the what it is to me and what I like about it. I don't know that the new stuff has that for me. But grew up watching, old school original series with my dad. It was on, I forget what channel, but we would always watch it. It was 2 in the afternoon after church on Sunday. It was on syndication, so that was part of the thing. And then Deep Space Nine and Voyager, like I was there when those were on. Like that's my childhood. Watching those Wednesday nights when they were on. Or was it? Yeah, it was Wednesday nights when those were on. So that I think those are my two big ones right now. And there's all kinds of other stuff, of course. Those big music nerd because I'm a musician myself, so I geek out over bands, things like that. For instance, Mike Portnoy's back in Dream Theater. That's been a big excitement for me. So those sorts of things outside of the usual geekdoms, I guess that we would say. But as far as that stuff, be Dragon Ball and Star Trek, I think are the big ones where I really have like either my own headcanon or I'm just super into Dragon Ball, into like power scaling and the physics of transformations and all that stuff. Or
Yes.
like Star Trek, just knowing all of the in-betweens and the in-universe histories and like just full-time geekdom for those IPs.
What instrument do you play?
Guitar, bass. I've got like three of them back here. Those are the main ones. Trained vocalist in school. Little bit of keys if I have to.
Very nice. Yeah, when it comes to Star Trek, I was burnt out for a while on the new
Mm.
stuff. Like Discovery is not my cup of tea. Um, the first 2 seasons of Picard, I was not there for what they had to say. 3rd season improved a little bit in my opinion, but it's still not like it's not gonna be in my top 10 list anytime soon.
Mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
I just finished the 2nd season of Strange New Worlds. Oh, chef's kiss. A breath of fresh air in my opinion compared to everything else. I don't know
Yeah,
how
for
you
sure.
feel on it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to new seasons, and I need to get into Lower Decks because what I have seen is like it's like a show written for Star Trek fans
Mhm,
as a comedy set in the universe, so I do enjoy that, and I did
mhm.
enjoy the crossover episode they had in Strange New Worlds,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
alright,
Got fun characters
so
for sure.
yes. So let's get into the actual what's new conversation. And I'm going to start with our lightning round to cover 2 things real quickly. Since Matthew, you want to get into that Dragon Ball Daima, we got to get that later on. But first is, as I continue to do, just covering Ultraman Blazar. Um, have you gotten into Ultraman at all? Are you a kaiju guy at all?
I'm aware of Ultraman in some of like the older stuff. I really have. It's not something that I follow super close. Like I know it's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. This one is the newest season. It's actually being dubbed in English. It's the first one they've done in forever.
Hmm.
Simul dubbing when the subtitles released at the same time as the dub. I'm enjoying that immensely. We have 1 episode away from the finale, and they left us on a heck of a cliffhanger. Like the host, typically how it works in Ultraman is there is a human bonded with the Ultra,
Hmm.
and typically the human is characters on screen for about 20 minutes out of the 20 some minutes, and then you see the Ultraman on screen because that saves on money and budget. And they got separated in the last episode. The moon just exploded. Things are getting hype. I'm really loving this series so much.
Wow.
Like this is like not that Ultraman has been bad in the past couple of years because they do a new series like pretty much every year, but like this
Mm.
is really good. Now, next up, Monarch Legacy of Monsters just ended. Now, have you got any familiarity with this at all, Matthew?
No, no idea.
Okay, this one. Have you watched any of the new MonsterVerse films with
No.
Godzilla, King Kong, and all that?
My wife's into some of that, and my brother is really into kaiju. So, like, it's stuff that's on my periphery, but I'm not
Yes,
super into it myself. Just
that's fair.
time. Like, a person only has so much time.
Amen to that. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and got families,
Yeah,
school,
yeah,
children. Everything gets in the way
yeah.
of having
Can't be
fun
into
sometimes.
everything. Yeah, can't be into
Yeah,
everything I want to be.
but as far as this series is concerned, I think the last time I was on What's New, I was really hype on it.
Mm,
That is slightly degraded. I really started hating our main trio. They're not really a lot of fun. I enjoyed the flashbacks a lot. I love those characters a lot more. Um, just our main character's just kind of lame after a while, but that there was a very nice converging of the 2 timelines, we'll say, without spoilers. That ended on a good cliffhanger with the appearance of another fine monster in the universe. So I am interested to see where season 2 could go, but definitely not as big on it as I was before. But with that, I believe we're done with our lightning round. So we're going to move on to our first topic today, which is Echo, the newest part of the MCU, just released on a Disney Plus not too long ago. Uh, Matthew, do you have any interest in the MCU at all? Have you been following anything?
um, it's been pretty loose the last little bit.
Yes.
You know, was into it quite a bit, like Gen 1, Gen 2. Um, you know, obviously, being my age, I grew up with the X-Men and the Spider-Man and all those cartoons, the Iron
Oh,
Man
yeah.
stuff. Like the early Marvel stuff was great. I'm not as up on what they've been doing episodically as far as making TV shows. Um, so it's more cinematic universe for me, less TV shows.
That's perfectly fair. As far as me, like, the last thing I was really excited about
Hmm.
was, No Way Home.
Mm,
Obviously, I'm a big Spider-Man guy. There's a reason he's my avatar. It's
fantastic.
not like yeah, I there's a love letter, all 3 of those films,
Yep.
well, different trilogies and duologies, really felt true to their characters, but it's not like I haven't liked the things that have come out recently, it's just
Mhm.
shown the wear and tear, in my opinion, of how long can we keep going with this? Should it have ended with Endgame, or should we just do our own
Mhm.
separate projects? Echo, on the other hand, is something that ultimately I did enjoy. It's not my
Mm,
favorite thing they've ever done. Like, spoilers for rating and reviewing it, I give it like a 7 out of 10. And for
mhm.
me, that's like, hey, I enjoyed it. I have issues with it, but I'm not going to put it high on any list. It's like how I rate that thing. Rating systems are kind of just whatever the person feels that day, anyways. So is what it is. But as far as Echo is concerned, this takes place not too long after the end of Hawkeye, where
Mhm.
did you watch that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, to avoid some
My
spoilers
wife,
for your sake,
again, my wife has seen all that, so
okay. So she'll appreciate this, is that
yeah.
there's a scene where she has learned that she's kind of been manipulated by the Kingpin this whole time into working for him. So she leaves that life behind and goes back to her old hometown where, as a young girl, she lost her parents in a very, excuse me, her mother in a very devastating car accident that she feels like she's responsible for. Both she and her mother, I believe, if I remember correctly, are both hard of deaf, and she is forced to rely on sign language in order to speak with other people. Um, and she's also became an amputee as a result of that. That she was later given like some bionics to help move
Mhm.
around. And so it's her reconnecting with the roots, and we get some really nice. She is Choctaw by heritage. Some nice introduction of that mythology in here. That was a ton of fun to like research and look into. I really enjoyed seeing that portrayed here. But I mean, it's in my opinion, just kind of suffers from that whole Disney Plus scenario of too little time building things up,
Mm,
and it feels like things are rushed by the end. There's a good confrontation between her and Wilson Fisk. I do enjoy that. Vincent D'Onofrio has done an amazing, stellar job as a kingpin. Like he is a physical threat. He's someone that you don't want to cross. And they set up nicely to where he's going to be going up in the MCU later on. And we do get our nice moment early on where there's a little crossover between her and Daredevil to
mhm.
help set up for that coming up later on.
Nice.
But yes, which I am now that I've heard that the writers for Born Again have changed and they're not going to do what they were going to do, which is apparently they were going to kill. Goodness gracious, Foggy and oh my gosh, what is her name? I can't remember her name. I remember the actress, but not her. We'll just say they both were going to die early on in the original script. So it looks like they're changing that. Didn't feel like that would be a nice way to reintroduce them. Karen Page. So I'm looking forward to that. But as far as this series is concerned, do you know anything about Echo, the character, before this? Have you ever heard about her?
I don't think so.
Okay. So she was introduced in the comics when Brian Bendis was running Daredevil.
Okay.
And he made her, they kind of align a little bit closely here, except in the MCU, it's Hawkeye kind of gets her on the straight and narrow. But Daredevil's when it does in the comics, it's like, hey, you're working as this kind of assassin for the Kingpin. You know, he's using you, tricking you into thinking that he didn't harm the people in your life to get you where you are now. So she becomes her own woman, does her own thing, and then later on, she ends up joining when Bendis takes over the Avengers under the Ronin persona that showed up in Hawkeye
Mm.
that Hawkeye took there, but she was the first one. And kind of, you know, working with the new Avengers there, she got kind of pushed out of focus a little bit, especially when the Secret Invasion happened. But and most recently in Jason Aaron's Avengers, which has kind of been hit or miss for me, she joined up and took over the Phoenix Force, which was its own thing. But whatever, comics being comics.
Right.
But I do enjoy her character overall. But we kind of brought it up a little earlier in that, yeah, you're not focusing too much on it, but like when it comes to it, like, are you hyped for anything that Marvel is going to be releasing later on? Or are you just like, there's too much out there, I don't have the time to commit to it, I'll watch what I watch?
You know, it's one of those things, and even you touched on this briefly. Disney's kind of doing what Disney does. I'm kind of at the same place right now with both Marvel and Star Wars. Or
Okay.
honestly, I kind of think we're oversaturated.
Mm,
Obviously, Marvel, there's tons of more characters to pull from. And we can always create alternate realities, new backstories, all that stuff, because that's the fun thing with comic books. At the same time, sometimes I feel like stuff should breathe.
mm.
So, um, like the only thing, um, you know, as eh, as I felt about Love and Thunder, I kind of I kind of want to see like a battle of the gods happen
Yes.
with the Olympians and all that stuff. So I don't know if that's on the horizon, but that's something that would definitely pique my interest, and get me back on the train for at least taking a peek at Marvel again.
Yes. No, that's perfectly fair. You know, the word superhero fatigue has been thrown out and abused way too long. It happened before Endgame. It's going to happen after Endgame. And I do enjoy what
Mhm.
Marvel has done for the most part. And there's stuff I'm looking forward to. Like I'm really looking forward to Deadpool 3. Like I enjoyed the first two movies. I want to see him crossing over to the Marvel universe. Like Hugh
Sure.
Jackman's in there as Wolverine.
Yep.
Like that sounds like a lot of fun.
I forgot about that.
Then
Yep.
there's
That's one
other
I'll see.
stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, then there's other stuff like the Agatha series they're gonna do that branches off of WandaVision. It's like it, I could be wrong. Maybe this becomes the Andor of the MCU products, but I really don't see the need for it because that's was initially my opinion about Andor. It's like, why would I care about a person who showed up just to die in Rogue One? As good as a film as I think Rogue One is, well, I was proven wrong by the really great writing of Andor. Now,
Mhm.
did you have any opinions on that? Did you watch Andor?
Haven't seen it yet. I'm still
Okay.
catching up
Yeah.
on Star Wars stuff. Same thing, just burned out. Like every year, there's a new Star Wars something, some new spinoff, or some character I forgot about that gets their own show, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's perfectly fair. I mean, once again, I think we'll just talked about this on the last episode I did with my friends, the Eardleys. It's like there's only so much time in the world. You can get just overwhelmed by everything that's out there. Just
yeah,
focus on what you like. You don't have to be in the midst of the conversations everyone else is having at the same time. You don't have to be ready on release date at 3 a.m. in the morning or whenever something gets released on Disney Plus, so you can watch it and then talk about it at the water cooler the next day. It's like
right,
just enjoy it at your own pace. Enjoy your things. Like you can be geeking out on stuff that came out 40 some years ago. Like I'm watching, for instance, The Outer Limits, the original for the first time.
nice,
Like
fantastic.
yes, like I had seen a couple of episodes, you know,
Uh huh.
beforehand of the 60s and the 90s one, but like never the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Hmm.
So I'm taking the time to go watch all those because I really enjoyed it. Because I last year watched all the Twilight Zone episodes, so some I'd never seen before,
Yep.
um, just to like get to that stuff. But that's once again that started in the 50s with Twilight Zone. And
Yeah.
that's how many years removed from now? It's like there's so much stuff out there. Just find something you like
Absolutely.
and enjoy it.
Sure.
You know? I mean, you may miss out on a conversation or 2, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like, what are we doing this for? Street cred?
Well, and that's the mixed bag of what streaming has brought us to. You think, growing up, shows were on TV. You either saw it when it was on, or you waited until the summer when the reruns came around. You couldn't really catch up on it later. You had to
Yeah.
watch it whenever you had to watch it when everyone else watched it, or you were going to wait until they ran back through it. And so I think, like, it's good in one sense that some of that immediacy is gone, where our life isn't bound to the TV schedule. We can watch it when we have time. At the same time, I'm like, you know what? I can watch that later. And then, later becomes next year, and then the year after that, and then, the year after that. And someone has to remind me that the thing exists before I get back and watch it, just because there's so much stuff.
Yes. No, that makes perfect sense. Like, hey, if you're listening out there and you feel overwhelmed by everything that gets released, it's okay. Just you can miss out on some conversations. Just find a time when you want to, when you have that moment, just watch it when you want to. If there's something else that you want to watch that has nothing, any bearing on the current conversations that are happening, watch that too. Both are valid.
Yep. Yeah.
Just do what you can do on your time that doesn't stress you out. Like, we shouldn't be stressed out just to catch up with everything here. Like, it's ridiculous. So I'll move on from Echo here, and just like I said earlier, my rating for it is a 7 out of 10.
Hmm.
Like, I would have preferred more time with her to get inside of her head. I did really enjoy the final confrontation between the Kingpin and his goons, and her friends there in the town, like, protecting what was theirs. That was really handled very well, in my opinion. But I would have liked to see more of Maya and what really, like, gets the gears turning in her head. But is what it is. So next up, your topic, and I'll bring on this one as well as a huge Dragon Ball fan myself,
Yeah.
is Dragon Ball Daima. So lay it on me, Matthew. What's happening here?
Okay. It's Dragon Ball Daima. We don't know tons. That's coming out in the fall. Fandom's pretty split from what I can get temperature reading wise. On the socials, YouTube comments, all that sort of stuff. I'm excited to at least give it a shot as someone who is an OG Dragon Ball fan. This is the 40th anniversary show, so that's part of it. Because Toriyama first started penning the manga for Dragon Ball in '84, so we're coming up on 40 years. But people are like, what does this mean for Super? Right? Is there more Super? And so that is TV politics there, the whole Super thing. So basically, Fuji TV in Japan, they like long-term contracts, and so we're at a point where, so there was a long time with Super where the manga was behind the anime, and the anime was actually creating the content, and then they were going back in and filling out the manga with the show. We now have Granola and Moro arcs in the manga,
Yes.
but Sueisha and Fuji have come together, so that's the company that prints Jump, and then Fuji TV that airs the anime. That's maybe one season. Granola and Moro arcs, maybe 52 episodes. And so Fuji wants there to be at least 2 or 3 years worth of content before they put Dragon Ball back on TV, because they do long-term contracts. Right now, they're airing the new Digimon reboot in the Dragon Ball slot, and that's supposed to be on for at least another 2 years. So, also, Toriyama's very much been in the background for the development of Super. Kind of like creating storyboards, but then it would just get passed off to different writers or whatever. And that's why there's been inconsistencies. even in some of the power scaling and how transformations seem to work. Like, can you use Super Saiyan once you have God Ki? Can't you? Like what? Like, there's so many. And really, this is him grabbing the reins and making the show that he wants to make. He's going to write and script every single episode. So he is fully in control of Daima. So we'll see where that goes. Story-wise, we don't know tons. There was a little trailer released. I think it was last week, maybe the week before that. Seems to be some magic stuff involved, because the pilot name for the show was actually going to be Dragon Ball Magic, rather than Daima. So, because we see Bobbity clips in the trailer, so I don't know if he's back or if it's someone from his school of magery or whatever, but basically some kind of magic happens. All the Z fighters get shrunk down. The dragon can't undo it. And we know there's an entire story arc involving Goku and Supreme Kai, basically trying to get to the root of the conspiracy, why they're all shrunk down, if they can fix it. I'm excited to see that, and also where it takes place timeline-wise. Like, is this in that 10-year gap between the end of the Buu saga and the last episode? Like where is this in the continuity with Super? Are we creating like alternate timeline where like Super goes off this way and Daima goes off this way? It'd be interesting to see canon wise where it all fits. And then I think the big question, at least for me, is this really just going to be Toriyama's take on GT?
That's an excellent question.
Are we going to get canon Super Saiyan 4?
Yes. Okay. So, real quick, like, I think I've talked about mine before, but I'll go over it again too. Like, how did you get into Dragon Ball? I'm assuming we were around the same time period, like when that was released. But let me actually hear what you have to say before I make assumptions.
Like, obviously Toonami was the big thing, but I am old enough to actually remember the Ocean dub on Fox.
Ooh.
Barely, like, but like, I had the original like orange box Catch the Dragon set of the Ocean dub of the first 3 movies. So like mid 90s is when Dragon Ball actually first hit. And it's interesting. Those early dubs are actually why there are kind of some of the arguments there are in anime fandom over dub versus sub and all of that, because we had to so heavily edit it to make it available for American audiences that dubs were awful in the beginning. Because we had to change stuff to make it basically safe for American TV.
Yes.
And that's definitely changed now with most anime hitting streaming. We don't have censors. We don't have things like that. Dubs are fine now. They're fantastic. The acting is good. The translations are on point because we're not dealing with censorship. But basically, if anyone's not familiar with the early Dragon Ball dubs, look it up on YouTube. Different voice actors, entirely different dialogue. Not bad, just different. They had to write their own scripts again for American audiences to make it make sense. So, if you ever hear talk about someone rather than dying, going to the other dimension, it's from those Ocean dubs. Yeah, or the home for losers. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a Toonami kid,
Yep.
and that's when I was first introduced around the 3rd grade, I think, because I do remember having conversations with some of my peers there, being like, "Oh my gosh, did you see this? Well, I'm gonna turn Super Saiyan this week." Or, "No, actually, it's gonna be me." And
Yeah,
all that fun that comes from that,
we all
one-upsmanship that. Yep,
we all tried to power up back then.
yep. I wanted my hair to change, I wanted to fire that Kamehameha. It just
Yep.
never seemed to happen, no matter how much I wanted it. But, yeah, then I kinda grew out of it a little bit, kind of in
Hmm.
general, until around 2008, 2009 when I started watching the abridged series, that Team 4 Star did, and that got me back into the fandom again, and I know they'll downplay it, but I'm fairly certain that happened to a lot of other people besides me, and that's the reason why Dragon Ball started getting a little more popular again.
Yep.
I watched all of Super when it came out, um, and the movies as well,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I'm caught up with the manga. It seems like you are as well, talking about, Moro and
Uh,
everything there.
I'm familiar with it. I haven't really taken the time to read it myself,
Okay.
but in researching stuff and putting timelines together and all that, just for my own geeky pleasure, I have
Yeah.
to at least be I have to at least be aware of all the content that's out there. And another thing too, I don't think that people give enough credit for continued success and resurgence after the fact is all the video games.
Mm. That was a huge part of it too.
Yep, because the first like my brother, for instance, he's about 5 years younger than me. He only saw bits and pieces of it when it was on Toonami. Because he'd see this part and then this part and then that part, or whatever. So it wasn't until he played the Budokai games and was actually able to play through the storyline that he actually even understood the story of Dragon Ball through the video games.
Okay. So, you mentioned GT as well as, like, a
Yeah.
possible, uh, maybe it's Toriyama's take on that idea. Were you a big GT guy when it came out?
Um, I'm so mixed with GT.
I understand what you just said. Continue.
um, well, similar thing. So that was like Toriyama was done creating Dragon Ball. Actually, like in his mind, he'd been done for a while, but he kept making content at the behest of Suisha to continue to create more manga. That was done. Fuji wanted more Dragon Ball anime. So some of the other guys involved in the Dragon Ball room made GT. Toriyama actually has nothing to do with it. Um, so be interesting to see if he's gonna make a head nod to that content, and because if people care about canon and continuities and those sorts of things, technically GT is not canon.
Yes.
So um, the baby arc I love. Story wise, I think it really fits in, because that is canon. Actually, we got that canon in the Super Broly movie
Mhm.
with the Saiyans taking over the planet from the Tuffles, renaming it Planet Vegeta, all that. So for GT to bring that out and have a whole story arc that was the revenge of the Tuffles on the Saiyans was good.
Yes.
I know some people don't like the Omega Shenron thing. Um, I actually like the Dragon arc that all these
I'll second that.
basic. Yeah, the basically random superfluous overuse of the Dragon Balls, creating negative energy, and so we have these evil dragons that are the embodiment of those careless wishes. I think that's great. Just from maybe even like an ethical standpoint, like if like well, if there was something like the Dragon Balls,
Yes.
like how should they be used? Should it be so flippant, or is there responsibility that comes with the awareness of their existence? But the rest of GT can go. The Black Dragon Balls, the Black Star Dragon Balls don't make any sense. Like where have they been all this time? Why do they scatter across the universe even though they were made here?
Yeah.
um, and then I think the whole Super 17 thing didn't make any sense either.
As far as GT is concerned, there's some hosts here on the show who do really like it. Some don't even know that it exists. I'm I'm one of those. It's okay. I mean, would I take a bullet for it? As being like pure Dragon Ball? Not really.
No.
As opposed to like a Cell Saga or Frieza Saga or something like that. Yeah, I would take the anime bullet for that. But it's still fun. Like the whole
Yeah.
I agree as well. The whole idea behind, hey, these wishes have distorted the Dragon Balls this much that the
Hmm.
negative aspects of them, their overuse. It's like, oh, you just keep bringing people back to life. There's no consequence to death or anything like that. Hey,
Hmm.
here's some consequences for you. I appreciate that immensely from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah.
But as far as like where we go here, is Daima a reimagining of GT from Toriyama's lens? I mean, could very well be. It doesn't seem like it because instead of just Goku being wished by Pilaf to be a kid
Yeah.
accidentally, it seems like everyone is. Now, you mentioned Bobbity being in the trailers. Could this be Bibbity coming back to life somehow
Right.
and realizing what happens? He doesn't have Boo anymore. So what does he do? Uses some magic to make them weaker in these, more childish forms. I mean, that could be something that happens. Could be some other magical threat that is new to this series that
Yeah.
causes this to happen. Um, how Beerus and Whis involved in all of this?
Yeah.
Like,
And like, I'm excited to see more of the magical aspect because it's only been touched on. For the most part, everyone in all of the universes, they're martial artists, they're key users, whatever. Like like Bobbity showed up, Boo Saga. We find out like there is magic in the Dragon Ball universe. I mean, obviously with Dragon Balls, that's some kind of magical mysticism or whatever. But I mean, magic that can be used. You can learn to do magic,
yes,
and we haven't really seen a main villain be a magic user. And so how does that stack up against key manipulation and the normal kinds of abilities that we're used to seeing in Dragon Ball?
yeah, I'm really excited to see where things go from here.
Yeah.
I'm also hesitant to. This is something that could easily be messed up, but knowing Toriyama is behind the writing does encourage me a little bit more.
Hmm.
So, like, do you have anything else you want to say on this before we move on? It's like you really want to get out there.
I just I think for younger fans or more casual fans, um, go back and watch OG Dragon Ball. Where it started, well, it was much more pure martial arts. There
Yeah,
wasn't like the feats were not these universe level breaking things. So it very much came down to their ability in fisticuffs. And I'm actually hoping to see somewhat of a return to that in Daima. Like we don't know if how it's going to affect the power scaling or their abilities. But I would love to see less. Oh, these punches are so powerful that it's breaking the fabric of the universe, and
yes,
more more just people fighting in more of a traditional sense with some special attacks thrown in because that's very much how it started. Like the key manipulation was just they were special attacks. It wasn't like the basis of the whole thing.
Okay. So considering this hasn't come out yet, like let's rate and review our hype for this. Like out of 10 or whatever system you prefer. I do 10 because it makes things more broad without being too broad, like a 100 level system. For me, I'll say like 9.5 out of 10. That's how hyped I am for this. I'm ready to see new Dragon Ball. It's been so long. We've had a drought. Like as much as I've been enjoying the manga, I want to see it animated again. I
Hmm.
want to see what
Hmm.
they have
Hmm.
in store. How about you, Matthew?
Oh, a hype is 10 for sure.
Okay.
My expectations are probably for a 7, just because. Well, like Tori, well, Toriyama's weird and
No, no,
he's goofy,
I get it.
and if he's like if it is a nod to OG, there's gonna be some out of pocket stuff in there.
Yes. Yeah.
It just
That
is what it
is
is.
very much of its time.
So my expectations for a 7, with the allowance for myself to be okay with a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
But
That's fair.
the hype is 10.
Okay. That is perfectly fine. All right, without getting to our last conversation today, that'll be on Solo Leveling, which is one of the new anime premiering in this
Hmm.
anime season. It is based off of a Korean manhwa. Manhwa is basically their form of manga.
Hmm.
It's also a webtoon there as well. For those of you, you may be aware of Tower of God. It's also based on a Korean manhwa. Uh, Excellent story there as well. I'm way behind on catching up with that, but I do enjoy it. But Solo Leveling is I have a weird relationship with it. I'm guessing you may have heard it at best. Probably haven't read it.
That one I haven't heard of. Heard of the other one though.
Okay. All right. So your central premise is, in across the entire world, these gates start opening up,
Mhm.
and in them come like these fantasy monsters and stuff like that. But if you come into contact with these gates, some people have the ability to kind of like essentially evolve
Hmm.
and gain new abilities and become faster or be able to use magical tools that they wouldn't be able to use. And they're able to figure out how to use these magic stones inside of them to, and make you faster or stronger or smarter or something like that. Uh, and the general premises here is that the weakest member of the entire Hunters Guild in South Korea, who's only there because his dad has gone missing, his mother's in the hospital on life support. He's trying to get enough money to keep his sister in school. So he just goes on like these lower ranked missions, just to go in there, work as kind of support, maybe kill a monster if he can, and just take whatever meager things he gets from there to afford his mother's medical bills or keep his sister in school and stuff like that. But in a process of one of these lower level dungeons, through one of these gates, they find an extra level which
Hmm.
they're supposed to go and report back. But because they could make a lot of money off it, the group essentially all votes what most people vote to go inside, and in the process end up in a place they should not be at the current abilities that they have. And these are 2 episodes in, so not really that much spoilery for anyone who hasn't watched it. Everyone escapes except for him. They either die or escape, and he is essentially sacrificed on this, gains new abilities from the result, that he can actually kind of this is so stupid. He Video game menus kind of show up for him, and he can
Okay.
level up in a way other people can't. But it's called solo leveling because he does it by himself. Now, I said I have mixed feelings, a weird relationship with this. I like the ideas that come with this because I've read the entire webtoon. Like, there's only 2 episodes of, released to the anime so far. I don't know how
Mhm.
far they're going to go. I don't think they're going to complete it, but it's
Is it one for one? Is there changes between the webtoon and the anime?
so far, it's pretty 1 to 1. I have no
Okay.
issues with that. It's more the story as it goes on. It's you know how people will sometimes rightly say American films are always concerned with the fact that America will save the day,
Yes.
and no, if Godzilla were to attack, America would intervene and stop it, or if aliens were to attack, well, of course, our Independence Day has to be because Will Smith is involved, and we have to go to Area 51, and only the Earth based on America's way of doing things, can get things done.
Right.
Solo leveling kind of does that, but it goes very Korean propaganda and not in a very fun way. It's like
Okay.
if you're not the main character, if you're not someone in Korea, you don't matter. You could be a racist, you could be uh just someone who isn't a good person generally. So that's something that develops along the way. And also, like I said, the only person who matters is our main character, Sung Jin Woo. And when I say he's the only person that matters, he's the only person that matters. It kind of gets to that Goku extent of there's not even a Vegeta near around who could maybe rival him.
Okay.
It's him and no one else, and it's him just clowning on people. And there's a certain appeal to that to an extent because, like, you want your main characters to win. You want to imagine yourself in their role
Right.
and see them, killing some fools sometimes, or just beating them up, depending on what kind of series you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, Matthew, like, what makes a protagonist interesting for you?
Um, you know, a- as I've gotten older, I'm very much less into one-dimensional protagonists. Um, I kind of almost like the anti-heroes more, or like the chaotic good type.
Okay.
For me, because like I think that's more real, which is a really big reason that I'm into. Another geekdom didn't mention earlier. Um, Big fan of everything Gundam.
Oh yes,
Because
very much so.
like they do that well. Who's like, are the good guys actually good, or the bad guys actually bad? Like everyone's like a real person with good and bad qualities, and the bad guys have honor, and then there are good guys that are just complete jerks, and all that, or good guys in quotes. Um, like that's my style. I like protagonists that aren't necessarily the best person. They're good because they have to be, or like
Yes.
they're good for the sake of good, not because they're this pure-hearted whatever. You know, Superman. Peace, justice, in the American way, kind of nonsense. But they're a real person. Um, but it's fun also to have your Gokus and to have your, just oblivious idiot protagonists
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. This is kind of an unfair question, and I'm the one who made it, so I'm the one calling myself out here because there are different things that make a protagonist interesting. Like, you
Mhm.
know, someone like Goku or Luffy from One Piece, they're not the genius in the room, but
Right.
there's something about them that brings people to them. There's charisma there that comes from the way that they, protect other people or
Right.
just fighting other threats out there. It's like, Goku is not a superhero by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
The dub made Americans think he is because they gave him more heroic quotes. That's
Right.
another dubism there. But for
Most
me,
of
what
that's
makes
most of that's gone in Kai now, but
yes. But to me, like what makes someone interesting is I have to believe that what they believe in.
Mhm.
I like villain protagonists like Death Note. I don't know if you ever watched that before. The general premise is high school kid in Japan sees this notebook fall out of the sky, reads it, finds out it's a death note. If he puts someone's name in there, if he knows their name and their face, they die. So he takes the premise and starts changing the world into his own image, killing off criminals and having people kind of worship him and stuff like that. It's like, as a person who used to be an edgy teenager, that is precisely what I would have done, even with Jesus in my life at that point in time.
100%.
And that scares me
Mhm.
because I don't want to be that person anymore.
Mhm.
But it also intrigues me because it's a what if. What
Right.
if 18-year-old Christian had been handed the death note like Light is in the series?
Mhm.
That is interesting. So I typically don't go towards villain protagonists unless that villain protagonist gets what's coming to them in the end.
Mhm.
So, something like Breaking Bad, like I watched the entire thing. I despise Walter White with every fiber of my being, even though at the end he doesn't really get everything he wanted because he had multiple opportunities to get away from this, and because of his
Right.
pride, he wouldn't. So I can't
Right.
stand when a character does that. But when it comes to our heroes, actual like our classic heroes. Like, I love Superman. I love Spider-Man because Spider-Man is my favorite character of all time. And what makes him interesting to me is not only the fact that he is filled with this guilt that if I had just stopped this one man, my uncle
Right.
would still be alive. But it's that he uses that as a motivation, never again. I don't want
Yeah.
anyone else's uncle to die or mother to die or what have
Mhm.
you. I will do everything in my power, even to my own detriment. And then sometimes I need to do a reevaluation of myself. How am I loving myself when I'm doing this, when I'm protecting the world from a supernatural or a crime or the world's being invaded again? Like, am
Yeah.
I still me? Am I still Peter Parker? That makes a lot of fun to me. Now, someone like Sung Jin Woo in this series, I lose a lot of the cares I give about it. He starts off really good, like I said, noble goals, like keeping your sister in school, wanting to have your mother her medical bills be paid for. Your
Right.
dad isn't there. You're the primary breadwinner. I'm on your side. And then he kind of becomes this edgy loner who doesn't really care about people, but people care about him. So it's what it is. But that kind of loses it to me. How
Right.
about you?
I
Anything
think
else you want to add to that?
no, like I think a protagonist that you can associate with is important. But I think um some of what you touched on, just with the even thinking about the Death Note thing, um, I think that's what makes so many of these IPs endearing. And it's the difference between the ones that stand the test of time and the ones that are here and then gone. The ones that can really speak to what it is to be human.
Mm.
They really dive into just psyche and the human existence and the struggles that we all have, like in ways that we can't in real life because it is an anime or a comic book or whatever, and you can have the feats be as fantastical as you want.
Yeah.
But to ground that in the struggle with your id and just get into some of the psychology of being human, um, I think those are the ones that last. Because like even in Dragon Ball, as ridiculous as it is, if we look at the entirety of the cast of characters, like they each bring a different piece of really humanity and emotion and loyalty and hard work and like whatever.
Well said. Yeah. It honestly, it depends on how well written they are at the end of the day.
Hmm.
If you can convince me this person believes in what they believe in and they can confront the evil that they do or the good that they do in a believable fashion, chances are I'm going to like them.
Yeah.
If they're just someone like you said, we had some earlier conversations on Facebook, I think. You hadn't watched Gundam Age.
Right.
There are three protagonists in that show because it's kind of a generational thing.
Right.
Two of them I like.
Okay.
The third of which is the most bleeding heart I've ever seen in the world, who's constantly just yelling at the world, understanding, because people should just understand each other. Why do we have to fight? All this stuff. It's like, yeah, sure, you can have those questions, but like, be rational about it. You know, sometimes wars just happen. Sometimes
Yep.
people get involved in politics that shouldn't be there, and they do things for their own self-interest, and that's why these things happen. And it's just
Yep.
like, understand people, understand. It's like, no, Kyo Asano, cannot stand him. Worst Gundam character in my opinion. As opposed to like his dad, who becomes a space pirate. It's an excellent series. Not to give away too much on your Gundam journey there, but excellent show for two
Yeah.
thirds of it. So moving on, next question. It should be the last question for today. So kind of one of the things that kind of bring up in like even like in the video games kind of way for most of the Dragon Ball games I've been involved, is kind of this ranking system. You kind of go from S, which is kind of like the best. You go,
Yeah.
maybe Z sometimes. You go A, B, C, D, E,
Right.
F, and F is probably the lowest. Like, and it kind of a judge of like a character's potential or how important they are to a story. Like, how do we feel about this being used as a way to judge a character's abilities? And should that or shouldn't that be brought into reality in some way, shape, or form? Should we be judging people based on their capabilities.
like like tier ranking.
Yeah.
Um, oh man, part of me, the arrogant, selfish human part of me, who has far too much pride and overconfidence in his own abilities, would love for society to be a meritocracy.
Mm.
That those who are smarter and gooder and all of those things are the ones that do well because it's based on your merit. Um, but the part of me that understands a biblical worldview and understands that, like, at the core, we all miss the mark. None of us are who we could be, who we should be. That's a terrible idea because we're all going to find the flaws in everyone but ourselves.
Yes. I, I completely agree. Like, in my arrogance, I'm always going to think, well, I'm obviously S rank. I'm obviously Z rank, forgetting about the fact that I'm not a go getter, that I struggle with pride, as evidenced by this statement here, that I'm not as empathetic as I could be to other people. Like, if I'm ranking myself in that, well, obviously, sometimes I'm going to be way lower. Sometimes I might
Mhm.
even be an F.
Right.
More times than I want to admit, I'm at that level. And then when it comes to people's capabilities, like there's an idea behind this I could get behind. It's like, hey, if I'm looking for someone to organize a mission trip somewhere,
Hmm.
I don't want it to be me because I'm terrible at organization. I would rank
Right.
myself probably an F. But I want someone who I know is capable of doing that, who would be able
Mhm.
to, is there any passports you need to get done? Is there any, who do you need to make contact with in this foreign country here that we would feel
Yeah.
safe working with? Like, that's something I want an S rank person doing that. I want them in that work. That way things flow as smoothly as possible because, no plan survives contact with the enemy, as good old Sun Tzu says. But it's still a lot better than if I were the one in charge. So
Right.
we we are called to judge to an extent, but not in that sense of you can only do this, therefore you're only worthy when you're doing this for me.
Right.
And
We
that's
get
where it easily could come in that meritocracy you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. We're getting
So
or we get
yeah,
or we get into caste systems, or we get
yes.
into, like, uh, you know, based on your skill set, you can only have this job.
Hmm.
And like even that, like, that makes me think. Did you have to read The Giver in school?
I did not, but I have read it.
Yeah. So it
Yes.
even makes me think of that, where they're assigned jobs just based on assumed gifts and talents or whatever, and they're trained just to do that job, and that's the life they're allowed to have.
Yes. It it comes from a place like if humanity were perfectly capable of creating a system where that could work, yeah, it would work. But humans are humans, people are people,
Right.
and someone's going to bribe someone to where they shouldn't be, or someone's going to use blackmail to get where they shouldn't be, or
Yep.
someone's going to outright lie about their capabilities and get where they shouldn't be. Like, it's going to happen because we're flawed human beings, uh, working against ourselves if we're what some people are, I would hope, and
Mhm.
working with a God who is attempting to speak with us and help us fight ourselves to be better than who we are so we can be who
Yep.
he needs us to be, the
Yes.
world needs us to be.
Hmm.
So, all let's say, talking about a dumb Korean manhwa that I do enjoy ultimately, we got to a really good conversation there about that.
Yep.
So I'll end it there for that. As far as rating and reviewing Solo 11 goes, as far as enjoyment is concerned, this is like a 9 out of 10 for me. Like,
Hmm.
I look
Nice.
forward to every chapter, every webtoon that released. It got to like 170, 180 something. So when that did, I think it was like Solo Leveling Wednesdays is what we used to call it back in the day, or something like that. I would always look forward to it. Even as ridiculous as much as the trains got off the rails and I was just watching them combust and explode the entire time, it was fun. Now, as far as the actual plot, probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's still worth your time if you're out there. You want to
Hmm.
get into a new anime that's coming out this season. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say never watch this. Just know what you're getting into. But with that all, Which of these topics today, Matthew, would you recommend as your top one of the day?
I mean, oh gosh, for me, obviously, probably Daima. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm aware of. And I'm hoping that we do get a throwback to kind of the OG style. Um, I don't think we will, but that's what I would like to see.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second that. Like, out of the things discussed here, like, I'm ready for some more Dragon Ball in my life.
Hmm.
Even though we're not covering the arcs I would have liked to have seen in the manga, with Granola and Moro and all that. But that's a fight. That's fine. This is what they want to do. It's what Toriyama wants to do. I want to see what he has in store. Maybe it flops. Maybe it's the greatest thing we've gotten, since OG. We shall see. I'm ready for it. So,
Yeah.
guys, thank you all for listening today. We really do appreciate on YouTube. If you can do us a favor, just like, subscribe, share the episodes. Really enjoy that. If you're listening to this on a podcast, continue to share the episodes with your friends, perhaps a cousin, as TJ would like to say, if you would listen to the show. Now, we do like to take time out of the day to thank those who've been helping us, and just a handful of people who've done so, who are members of our Patreon or Captivate. Aaron Hardy, Daniel Sigmund, Trip Fuller, and James Barrett. You guys are the best. Really enjoy what you do, but remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of